weekend, extremely disappointed. No sense in that happening the way it happened, but it did. And we as coaches and players, we have to own that. That's who we are and what happened. We say, that's not us, that's not us. Well, that was us. That was us, and that's what we played, and that's how we coach. Now we have to do a better job of fixing those issues and moving on. And as you look at the film, there's plenty of issues that need fixing in all phases of the game, because we failed in all three phases of the game when you look at it. Didn't respond enough on offense, had good momentum early in the game, had a couple opportunities early to really hit some big plays, got some pressure, but then battled back to 14-10, felt good, and gave up defense. They were moving the ball very well, moved it well all day. They're a very good football team, very well coached, but at the same time, we have plenty of opportunities if we do what we need to do and how we need to do it, and the angles we need to do it, the eye discipline we need to do it. There's a lot of plays to be made there in all three, in both phases, as far as offense and defense. We let them get that score, then we had that critical turnover, and then it kind of just went from there. And I think our kids, one thing is I think they got shocked. There's no doubt. I don't think they quit, but I think they were shocked at what was happening and how it happened. And this shows you how quick things can happen. If you're not on your A game, I don't care who you are, where you're at, what goes on. Anything can happen at any time. And it's very disappointing that it did, and that's my fault. And we have to move on and do it. But at the same time, we have to look at those issues, correct them, make the adjustments in which we need to make, and play the way we need to play. And it's with a lot more passion and emotion, and a lot more emotion and heart and all that stuff is good now. But what's going to win is heart and emotion, with a lot of technique and sound fundamentals of hat placement, hand placement, where we step, where we block, where we look, the fundamentals of how you play. And then you got to play with great heart and passion. And they did that a heck of a lot better than us. And they did a real nice job at it, that's for sure. And now there were some guys that did some good things, and a lot of guys that didn't do the things they needed to do. And we as coaches have to coach better, put them in a better position, to make sure we can do what we do when we get on the field. But we owned it, we did it. Now it's time to adjust to that, let them see the film, adjust to those things in which we got to do, and move on and get ready for a very good South Florida team, who has an outstanding team. They're undefeated, averaging 50 points a game, playing really good on defense. Since us last year, I believe, they only lost 2 games since our game last year, if I'm not mistaken. Played really well, very dynamic, got good players, always had a great program. Will be one heck of a challenge going down to their place, and it will be a very big test for us to see how we want to respond, how we want to react, and who we're going to be, who are we, and what we're going to do. And step up, whether you're banged or bruised or any of those things, it's time to move on. It's football season, and must do a much better job of what we're doing. It's coaching and playing and all the phases of the game. So we'll go from there. Any questions?
Jimbo, you said that even no matter what scheme type of run it has to fit, your players have to be able to do that. Based on this game, do you feel like you can still run what you want to run?
Yeah, I mean, what we're doing was the same things you did in the Ole Miss game. I mean, what's the difference in the things in the Ole Miss game? They were a very good team. This team played really well. We didn't play on our A game. And we played in the Charleston Southern game. We played against each other. I mean, you don't drastically change. You may tweak things here and there. And they were there to be made, and at times in the game we made it. We just didn't make it with enough consistency to execute. And like I say, everybody says, well, there's bad plays. Any play when you don't execute is bad. And there's times we have executed when we didn't. And we have to coach it better, put them in better position, and make sure we're ready to get that done.
Did you feel the issues were more physical, more mental after you watched the game?
Both. I mean, we had eye violations. We had guys in position to make plays that didn't make it. And a couple times they got it. There was a few good calls they had, and they got leverage, and we brought some pressures, which you were trying to create some things later in the game, which, you're going to take a chance here and there. But some of the, for instance, we don't, by the time they hit a little back on the flare for a big play early in the game, we got a guy to peel for it. He's there. He just runs right behind. We have 2 guys hitting the quarterback. If he peels, it's a sack. And now, that doesn't justify we didn't execute it. You know what I mean? They did. And there was opportunities there. Offense, early in the game, 3rd play of the game, we have a big play that Travis caught later for about 30 yards on the over route. We had that same pass, had it open, and we just missed a block. And it was that simple. I mean, it was a physical thing. No one really knew what to do. We'd get in there, just didn't get there the right way. So they in a game like that, they found those inches for those 3 or 4 or 5 critical plays. And I say that just like us at Clemson up there in 2013. I mean, we won that game, 51-14 or whatever it was. There's usually never that big a difference between. Well, sometimes then when momentum goes, execution goes, you get teams that are hot in rolls, those things happen. And now what we have to do is respond back, look at why they happen, and move on and make it better. And do we have issues? No doubt. Or we wouldn't have been in the situation we're in. There's no sense to be in that situation, but got to get better at it.
We heard guys talk about communication and how at one point it went sort of blank. What do you do to fix that kind of problem?
It all happens in chaos when you panic and when things go and you start to feel things go. You know, they'll go to say something and people will be, when they got to communicate, sometimes it's not scared. It's like you don't want to make another mistake, so you become very hesitant. You get on your heels, and that's what momentum does in sports. I mean, it's no different. And what happens is, and I say it, but I don't say it loud enough. Usually when I'm confident and things are going well, I'll scream it, I'll holler it, you know, when I'm relaxed, or just like that. And then when you get in those situations, sometimes they don't say it loud enough. That guy, all of a sudden here comes the play. You know what I'm saying? So our hands do, and that's where you got to get back to playing those situations. And we've had a lot of guys that have, and a lot of guys that haven't at that level. And we have to continue to keep doing that and reinforcing it in practice and making sure you do it no matter what. And that's what happens, because it's like you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to be the guy, well, I won't make a mistake once it's starting to go bad. Instead of, you have to have more guys come to the rescue. Sometimes you can't wait to be rescued. You got to go rescue yourself. And by doing that, you have to stand up and make calls and do things no matter what. And quit. And like I say, players don't want to lose. They don't want to make mistakes. They don't want to do any of that. Coaches don't either. But at the same time, you can't fear what the result is. You got to be ambitious, and that's where maturity a lot of times comes in. And we got to get more mature in how we do things.
Well, I mean, you talk about that maturity and all that, but I mean, do you think this game kind of helps get to that point? Because I mean, you're hearing a guy like Jacob Hughes, a junior, say like, this is still an issue. I mean, do you think that this loss kind of helps the team understand? Okay,
it most definitely does. I think it most definitely does. And that's when you saw him afterwards. That's why ranting and raving and yelling isn't going to do anything right now. I mean, I'm mad. I'm pissed off myself that we didn't allow that to happen. I'm pissed off at our coach. Pissed off. I mean, but at the same time that it happened. But why did it happen? Yelling and ranting and raving now isn't going to do anything. Now you have to fix it. You have to figure out how to do it, and you have to go back to work with passion and a purpose and a drive and get it done. And there's a lot of football left to play. But at the same time, we've got a lot of work to do to make sure we play good football.
Jimbo, is that how you spent the last kind of 36 hours? Just figuring out, you were pissed off, but what can we do to fix it?
Yeah, I mean, you look at it. I was extremely mad, but there's a point once that goes, that makes no sense. I mean, and that's what people do, is don't want to try to find a solution. It covers up. And that right then is not trying to cover up. Now it's trying to figure it out and be honest, but at the same time, be very, very direct, be very accountable for myself, for our coaches, for our players, in every way, and know that we're all there together and we're going to figure it out because we know we can. We've proven it in the past. We've proven it for 6 years. We've proven it for the first 2 games of this year that we can. One game doesn't define you unless you let it define you. It should drive us, not define us.
Well, you mentioned panicking earlier. You also mentioned that a few times after the Louisville game. Is that a legitimate concern with this team?
No, it's not panic. It's just when things don't go well. I wouldn't say we were panicking. I think we were shocked. You got shell shocked. You got hit. You go, whoa, I ain't never been here. What do I do? I don't think, there was not panic. There was no, when you went to the sidelines, there was still communication. There were still guys, but you just got on your heels and momentum, and you got to change momentum. We were able to do it in the Ole Miss game, which is, as I said, it's very dangerous to keep putting yourself in that position. But what I had felt better than this game, than actually the Ole Miss game, we had weathered the storm a lot better for the first quarter and a half when it was 14-10. There was 10, 11 minutes to go in the second quarter, and we each had the ball 4 or 5 drives. The Ole Miss game was going that way. That game went right back to, we were in good shape, felt comfortable, knew it'd be an emotional burst when you first went up there, and felt very comfortable. And then gave up and then missed a 3rd and 5, which is, there was an inches. I mean, went right over our guy's head. He's looking down on a slant, and if he gets his hand up right there, he's in. But it's not. I mean, he was looking at this guy, and they were throwing it behind him. And the guy threw it right over his head, which is very hard to do, which is very risky. But they had those inches for the day, and then it was like, dang, no. Then we had the turnover, and then it was just like, man, you got to change it back, and you got to go back, and you got to make it happen.
Jimbo, you talked about coming back this week and reevaluating everything and fixing it. Is this where you kind of realize this team, what they're made of?
Yeah, no doubt. You're going to find out what defines us. You know what I'm saying? And it isn't the scoreboard. It isn't the national championship. It isn't an ACC championship. It isn't the Heisman Trophy. It isn't a watch list for this. It isn't a watch list for that. It's about playing football. Going back to the process and remember why you played football and how you have success. When you have success, you grind, you do the little things, and which I thought we had done, but not well enough. We eliminate the clutter and go back to each other. And sometimes you have to do that, and we need to do that. Just like a lot of teams have faced those issues in the past. I don't want to face them like we did. And it's very disheartening. in a way. But, you know, hey, it's reality.
What is it about this team that you believe, and what have you seen since you've been back, that you believe that this could drive you instead of defining you?
I think the results and the look in their face and the comments coming back, I feel very good about. Now, from the drive point, now we got to make sure we're fundamentally and good enough football players to do it. Wanting to do it and having those right comments is one thing. You got to go back and execute on the field and believe, love, trust in each other, believe in each other and what's going on, and do it at a high level.
Coach,
Consistently.
you said you know, the coaches have to get back into the players' heads, but how much is it that the players need to get back inside the players' heads? Senior leaders communicating. And
No
making
doubt.
sure-
I mean, there's and in all interactions you have to do it, but at the end of the day, the players have to take ownership of the team, and they do. We have some really good leaders. I think have gotten to guys and had meetings and done that. I really do, and they will do that. It's all part of that culture which you got to create, which we had created around here for a long time, and we still believe we have it.
Jim, it seemed like on some of the option plays, you might have had the line and some back end guys taking a dive or things like that.
The end was supposed to play down on the dive and knock him off the quarterback and make a give. We were scraping the backers and scraping the safety.
They just
Played at two levels, and we were jumping outside. Sometimes at the end, most of the time we were good. Sometimes we'd jump out. We would want to go make the play, see it. I want to go get it, and all of a sudden, you know, you just not enough consistency in what we did at times. And there was times we started crashing at him, changed it up, started crashing at him and going harder, taking it away. And then a couple times our backers took the play and went inside on the fake or on a thing. It should have been filling outside. There was not enough consistency there, and the safety's coming down. And we have played that look many, many times. And we got to do it better. And we got to trigger quicker, see our keys, and get down. And, you know, even alignments. And sometimes, you know, you don't think of alignment. I'm as what I call 40 back, inside shading tackle. That's supposed to be a 50, another step. Well, that's a lot of times where a guy can just get enough of you to catch it. You know what I'm saying? You're one step away. And that's why I say the inches and the angles, we did not create. And that's what good coach football teams and well-played players do, and we didn't do that.
On some of the blitzes and pressures, is any of that on DeAndre, or is that pretty much most of it?
One was he should have sided and got out. The rest of it, I mean, they were picked. You know what I mean? She could have been picked up. And, but once it got snowballing, most of that happened more in the second half. Well, I take that back. The first 2 third downs, we had pressure. We had missed a field goal, made a field goal. We missed blocks. But the rest of it, and he took some shots. He stood in there, and he was, at the end of the day, even though he missed throws, what I was happy about from his standpoint, even though he missed a couple deep balls later, which I thought one of them, the guy tried to dive at him, but that wouldn't have mattered anyway in the game. But his decision making was still good, for the most part. I mean, there was a couple that was skeptical, but for the most part, he was still seeing the field and doing. And what that tells me, his mind did not leave. You know what I'm saying? He might have been pressing himself later in the game, which you normally would when you get down like that. But as long as your decision making is good, that's a very, very good sign, because he was still seeing what the right thing to do is. Well, we just got to finish and execute.
Jimbo, on that pass protection, I think it's been 11 sacks in 3 games. What are you going to do going forward to try to shore that up a little bit?
We've tried 2 or 3 things. We just got to get better, practice better, chip help. We slid protection. We got beaten out a couple times. I mean, we just got to keep honing up and getting better. And not to, and again, try to find our ways to throw the football. That's why you see us trying to throw it on early downs and things like that. When it's not big blitz downs, you know what I mean? And third down, we got some third and longs, which you had to hold the ball, and then they're allowed to come like that. We got to get better third down situation. But we got to be able to run the ball a little bit better in that situation too.
Quarterback showed his toughness. That's taking a lot of hits.
Oh, he did. I mean, he did. I mean, that's part of it. Been there and done that.
Jimbo, you had some injuries on the offensive line, but based on what you saw in camp, did you think this group would struggle like they have?
Not as much. I mean, I thought we would struggle quite as much, but at the same time, there's some other things we need to do. We missed some cuts early in the first game. We missed some cuts on some big runs that I think, and even getting the ball out a couple times. And what I'm saying is, if those things happen, all of a sudden their confidence goes up. You know what I'm saying? And it's sometimes when they've done it right, we haven't done it well around them either. I'm not saying that we played great, but I'm just saying it's kind of a combination in a couple of those things, and we have to play better around them. And then they have to play better, get confidence, and realizing what they're doing is right. And because I believe we have good players there, I still think we got good guys. We just got to play better. We got to coach better.
I know at this point, a lot of guys are injured, even guys that we might not know about. But
Yeah.
Is Dalvin hurt?
No, everybody says that Dalvin's fine. There's nothing wrong with Dalvin. I mean, normal bumps and bruises of a football that he had the same, probably healthier than he was a year ago. I mean, when you get right down to it. I mean, he hadn't had the yards he got the other day. I thought he ran pretty daggone good. And there's a couple runs that we missed on a kick out block on their sideline for some reason. We turn up, and if we kick the backer out, it's out. And and we come on a sweep to the right one time early in the game. We get the kick out on the safety and the backer. We slip just as we're going to make the cut. If he can make that block, I mean, it's an 80-yard touchdown. We're inches from a lot of those. But that's what I'm saying. There's inch. If we have 7 different inches, I mean, we probably may not still win the game, but we're right there with it, and we're not having this drastic thing. You got to fight for inches. And I know that sounds crazy. There's a lot of things can be really close, but it's like that. But when you get them, it's the same inch. It's no different either way. You just happen to make those plays, and that's what we're not doing. We didn't do in that game. We have been doing for the last 3 quarters. We've done really well. I mean, we went about 13 straight quarters and 13 straight drives and scored from 8 or 9 in the Ole Miss game and that. But defensively, the same way. We got to find those inches, and we got to get there, and we got to tackle better in space. We got to create better leverage, better eye discipline. And we even had a couple of big mistakes, like I say, was in man coverage. And you're covering a guy, and all of a sudden we stop and look in the backfield, and that's those things can't happen. Once you're on man, you're on man. You know what I mean? And we have to get those things ironed out.
I was saying DeMarcus demanded that more out of himself and his teammates and stuff.
Well, he will, but making promises and demand, that's great, and I think it comes from a super place. What we need to do now is just go get ready to play. And I think it comes from a great heart. I think that guy is a tremendous leader. Plays his guts out. That guy, and he played a pretty solid game in that game. But what we need to do is just go back and just get ready to play. We play football that we're accustomed to and practice that way and create all the little things. But we got to find those inches in practice. And like I said, this team, as I said, was still evolving in its practice habits. And we did not practice poorly last week. We did not practice poorly. I practiced better, but we did not practice poorly. But obviously, we didn't practice well enough for a team of that caliber who's good enough.
Jimbo, is that kind of the most frustrating thing, that you thought you practiced well, you were ready for it, and then in
Felt
the game?
good. No, I mean, we didn't practice the best I've ever practiced, but felt that we would play better. It is, but it would be frustrating no matter how you practiced or what you did. That you still went on the field, didn't execute at a level and things that we thought we could have.
I guess in the games, it looks like on defense, there's a lot of confusion. Now, we watch games in the vacuum, you're the only team we watch all the time, but is there as much confusion on defense as there appears to be?
No, well, we have one time where Brian Burns, because of Sweat being injured off and on, he come off the field in a regular pass. He'd been one of our dime, in other words, our pass rushers. Well, he had to, in that game before, we had Sweat and Pugh being the guys at that position in regular. Well, right before he was in the game as a young guy, not blaming on him, he came off and one time was running back on the field. He hadn't been in that till Josh had his injury on Thursday. You know what I'm saying? And when he heard regular, all week he'd been running off the field. Then he realized he ran back on. That happened. I mean, I say that happens. It was a weird situation. There was a couple times, getting nickel and dime when people were matching their personnel. That's why they have to hold. You know what I'm saying? You get a call upstairs, and what a lot of people do, they'll run. But that's why you have the referees doing a great job now. Remember one time they stopped them and didn't let them. They had ran a certain group of people on the bell, so we matched it. Well, then they ran them off and ran another group on. Well, then you got to get the call from upstairs on defense. You're always the second one to react to that. You know what I'm saying? And the officials saw that. So sometimes in your personnel group, people will run them. What they do, they'll run them halfway on the field and bring them back. And it's not on purpose. Sometimes I've done that, calling a play, blue, blue, blue. And say, for instance, for a personnel group. And then say, oh no, I meant red. And that happens sometimes. You know what I mean? And it causes your defense to do that. But we've got to lock in and make sure we communicate well and make sure we get the right people in the game. But we did all of it. I think one snap they had us in a personnel grouping that they were in blue, we were in dime. We'd rather been in nickel. It was one personnel game, one situation in the game like that.
USF still has some key guys you saw last year. Have you seen that team and that program improve over the last year?
They've lost 2 games since we played. They're very good, physical up front, inside guys. He tackles 10, and he committed to us. Remember, big, strong inside guy. The players we've recruited, a lot of their guys are dynamic, got playmakers, long. They're a good team.
Flowers in particular, what's he do?
Throws it and runs it. I mean, he can run it, he can throw it. He played there at Miami Jackson. I remember him in high school. Really good player, and was good against us last year.
Jimbo, in terms of Matt, what type of runner?
I'm sorry?
Marlon Matt?
Oh, the running back.
Yeah.
Physical. I mean, he's a good player now. I mean, strong, hard to get on the ground at times. You know what I'm saying? Good balance, body control, strength. He's a good player now. He's a really good player.
Jimbo, when you went through, you were saying you were mad at yourself and mad at the whole situation. You also said you were mad at the assistant coaches. What kind of conversations do you have after a game like that?
I'm mad at everybody. I mean, because we all be held accountable. That we got to make sure we dot I's and cross T's. when I say mad that we didn't have the success we wanted, and we felt very good about it. Let's look at why we did it. Was it practice? It was a practice thing. And we do this every week if you win. People act like you do this. We go back every week and win. In this area, we thought, we'll say, we were deficient even if we won right here, and we thought we were going to be good. Why? We were efficient here more so than we thought we could be. Why? You know what I'm saying? We do that on wins and losses. There's nothing different as far as how we evaluate a game, because we actually do that. And like I say, every team I have, there's a notebook that thick. For our practice plans, notes, things we thought of people, how we go in, and we keep a running total of those things. But, as far as just making sure why did that happen? Why did this happen? And just reevaluating. But we do that when we win, too. It wasn't just a thing that we're doing when we lose. I want to make sure you say that, because we do it win or lose the same way. But just, happen like that, it's very disappointing.
We have a lot of guys banged up or limited that played in the game. What their status be? Anything like Christmas, Matthew Thomas. Some of those
Matthew
guys.
Thomas is fine. He went back in the game. Christmas should be fine. No normal nicks and bruises. I mean, you may have to look at treatment on stuff. It's nicks and knacks and normal things like that. From what I can tell right now, everybody should be out there. Maybe a couple guys that you may hold a little bit today. They'll go out there and do a little bit. You may just rest them because they played a lot of snaps or something like that. But for the most part, should be ready to go.
Jimbo, I know offenses have changed, and Oregon and Louisville both had non-offensive touchdowns, but at least statistically, the two, worst games of defense that's played in school history have been in the last 15, 16, 17 games. 59 to Oregon, 60 to Louisville. Is that coincidence, or is there something there that as to why?
Well, we got to fix it. Look at two spread teams that did very well. We turned the ball over at Oregon. I think the Oregon game, we were right in the game, moving it. Now we were matching. It's going to be a high-scoring game. And they were very dynamic and scored a lot of points. And I think this team here also is a very, very dynamic offense. They're on pace to do a lot of things, and I think you will by the time the year's over. I think that's a very good football team. But at the same time, we got to make sure shouldn't happen like that. And we got to look at why we're doing it. And we got to tackle better, be more physical, do the things we need to do. There's no doubt.
Coach, 2 episodes in, what do you think of the Showtime series so far?
They haven't done anything. They've been very supportive and kind of been out of the way a little bit for the most part. No one really knows.
What do you think about the final product of the first 2 episodes?
Seemed good to me. Seemed good storylines, and hopefully, seeing our kids in a different light. That they're real kids, not just gladiators in a uniform. That they live a normal life like everybody else's kids, and everybody else is out there, and they still have moms and dads, and they have problems just like everybody else, and they got to fight through it, and then still got to go out and do good in school, perform just like everybody else in the world. And I think it's very good to see that.
When you look at the missed tackles.
I'm sorry.
When you look at the missed tackles, is it poor technique? Is it
bad angles? Not standing gap distance. For instance, and I say this to make it say, if you're supposed to squeeze down, then the ball's supposed to bounce. As I say, wrong shoulder. What that means is, here comes a blocker, here comes a thing. If I put this shoulder in and I make it bounce to the next toe, okay, or skip this shoulder here, and I make it bounce, and there's somebody here in leverage. Well, if that guy who's supposed to make the ball bounce, if he doesn't do his job and gets out, everybody else is out here, well then, and looking for angles, waiting for the ball to come how it's supposed to come, and then it gets cuts inside, and you run and you dive, you miss a tackle, you're out of position, but you're out of position because you were going to where your job is, and it's usually one guy inside, and then everybody becomes displaced across the board. Does that make any sense of how you got to do it? And then what happens is you keep fitting it, especially on those zone runs when your quarterback power, when he's either handing it or squeezing it or running a zone option where he's doing it and you're pulling around the edge. It's all leverage. And when you get one of those inside guys out of there, it puts everybody else attacking at poor angles, and that creates missed tackles. And that's why you have to have, what I say, gap control and eye discipline. And I know that sounds simple, but it really is. But it's harder to do than your natural instinct is to try to go make plays.
Were there more missed tackles in this game than, say, a prior game?
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. I have that up there. We judge missed tackles, loafs, what we consider loafs, lack of efforts, every week and things like that in every phase of, you judge everything. I can't remember the number of missed tackles off the top of my head right now. But it was definitely higher than it was the last 2 games, for sure.
Is that?
One more.
No,
Is that lack of trust in not fit?
It's not just trust, it's just experience. You got to be able to do it. It happens at all levels. It happens in pro football. It happens in high school football. It how you play it. And then you say, well, you want to switch schemes, you want to do that. Well, okay, you switch it, but then you switch assignments for guys and how they got to play different things. You know what I'm saying? And you mix it up, and you have to do that against good people. And we just created bad angles. And a couple times, we just didn't trigger. I mean, sometimes we spilled the ball, and a safety or somebody would be right there and have to, all right, I get my key that triggers me down, and I came 2 steps late. Well, that 2 steps you give a guy like Lamar Jackson or one of those guys 2 steps, that's what, 3 yards? All of a sudden that angle becomes bad. And when you play fast people and good people, you can't have those luxuries of being being a heck on your heels and people say, well, why don't, I say if I'm looking at Gene, I'm supposed to be looking at you. I'm looking at you and all of a sudden I look at Gene real quick and come back. By the time that happens sometimes, the discipline of your eyes. And I know it's not an excuse, that's just reality. That's the way football's played. You have to see it, and then boom, you got to react. You ain't got time to think. You got to react, be where you're supposed to be, and make plays.
What kind of things has Charles said to you after that game?
Oh, I watch every film of win, loss, or draw, and how we played every play, why we played every play, things that if I agreed with that scheme, if I didn't agree with that scheme, we had going in, and how I think and looking from an offensive perspective, that wouldn't bother. This would bother me more. But we had things that were right, and a lot of things that were right. We got to trigger better, but that's part of coaching too. It's not on the kids, not putting it on the kids. You got to coach them better to see things better, to do it more, to execute. It's on all of us.
Well, you were a coordinator, obviously, in a big-time program, and I'm sure you came under fire occasionally. That's part of the job of being a coordinator. I'm sure it happened quite a bit. How did you handle it as a coordinator, and how do you handle it now when one of your coordinators as a head coach is coming under some?
Go to work. You go back to work. Worrying about it ain't going to change it. Going back to work and knowing, trusting in yourself, and trusting that you know ball and how you do it, and had bad games. People question you all the time. It's easy when you're in charge. Of course, everybody's going to play. Everybody's got answers. You know what I'm saying? But making sure you believe in yourself, what you coach, you go back and coach it and go to work. And as I say, eliminate the clutter. You can't worry about it. Coach Bowden always said that. You can't. He was famous for saying that. You can't listen to that. It's people. Understandable. Fans are emotional. We're all emotional. You know what I'm saying? I want everything perfect. I want everything perfect and everything. But that's not reality. And we have to coach and do what we do, know what we know, and believe in ourselves. I believe in him and our staff and what we're doing, and we'll go coach.
One of the things we've seen this year has been linebacker depth. What's been done to kind of, strengthen it? Because I know we saw a little bit of Emmett Rice, but how are you
guys got to recruit? You got Emmett and Dontavius. They're getting in there playing a lot. Josh Brown's getting a lot of time on special teams evolving. You'll see him in the inside, outside. You see him in some outside positions too, for how he's going to play. And you got to keep developing. We had one guy have an academic issue, one guy didn't get in, and we thought we'd get in. So we're down 2 guys at a critical point. And but at the same time, you got 4 very good players. And those 2 young guys, you saw Emmett and Jackson at times. They're coming on. They've only been here 3 games. I think they're did some nice things in the game.
How did Josh come out of the game with his knee? Josh.
Okay, still a little swelling on, I think, but that's one we'll evaluate and see if he thinks anything needs to be done or not be done. How he responds probably next day or so.
Jimbo, does South Florida run the same type of zone read stuff that Louisville does?
We played them last year with him. And a lot of things Louisville. The only thing Louisville did, they did it a couple of times out of different personnel groupings, but the same group that we played extremely well last year. And how we played it, a lot of the same schemes. They threw the ball a little better, but they just did it better, more faster, and real good at it. And these guys are and South Florida does a lot of the same things.
Jim, I know you have goals of winning ACC title, pursuing national.
I'm not concerned about that right now. What I'm concerned about is playing good football. Listen, I've won 2 national titles as a coach. One's assistant, one's a head coach. Neither year you're supposed to win it. And I say that. Another year, what you can't, you got to control your team and play the best you can play. And I don't mean that we don't want it. That's our goal to win a national title. There's no doubt. That's the ultimate goal. But you can't dwell on those goals. And that can't be your outcome. ACC, what it is to play good football. If you play good football, those things come. And that's what we didn't do Saturday. We have to go play good football. That's what I'm worried about. The process of how we practice, how we watch film, how we coach, how we do everything. And stay true to the process and just play good football. That's all you can do. The rest of that stuff is out of your control. That's all you can control. I know that sounds, but it is. And then people say, well, you don't. No, we really don't. The good programs I've ever been in, we never talked about national championship. That was our goals in the beginning. That was not our drive. That was not why we went to the field. We went out there to coach good football, be with the kids, let them play good football, and all of a sudden you achieved a lot by how you played. And that's what you have to do.
Jimbo, you said you didn't want this Louisville game to define you. Do you think how you respond to the Louisville game will define you?
Yeah, I think it's this team, just how this team got to define itself, and that how it wants to respond, and how it wants to play, and how much, you know, in the fight it has, and how much you come back from it. And you have to do that. You gotta let it drive you. You know, however, whatever that means for this next game, is to play better football. Practice better, play better. Be a better person from it, and you can grow from it.
Wilson Bell played some late in that game. Is Dickerson now the guy there?
No, but Wilson's been banged up. He's had an ankle. And it also, Dickerson had played better for a while than Wilson had at some times in games. And he wasn't all the way healthy. And so hopefully he'll be healthy this week, and we can hopefully get Minshew back. We need Minshew back. Kareem, Dickerson and Bell, hopefully get 4 guys in there and keep rotation. Let them play a couple series, pull one out, you know what I mean? Let them grasp what's going on in the game, slow everything down, and do that. Hopefully we keep rotations in depth. That's what our ultimate goal was anyway, to get those guys to be able to play, you know, different times. And get Brock Rube, I think Brock's really starting to play good. And it's not and Ricky's doing okay, but it's not that. You want to keep many of those guys you can play and get them in there, those situations, and do that. So hopefully there's times and we can rotate more guys as we go.
Had you done that before? Usually offensive.
We didn't have enough depth. Nah, you go back and look. The teams I've ever been on, we were really good and had depth. Like LSU did, we did that.
You rotate?
We did it a lot. Oh yeah, did it a lot. We didn't have the depth. We haven't had the depth. We haven't been able to have the depth, or have had injuries. You know what I mean? Or guys that just weren't quite ready to play. And that's what we have to do. We did that a lot. That was a big.
What's the latest on Sean?
Getting healthier, moving around good. Should be good practice.
Jimbo, on tape was a bright spot. Is he kind of evolving?
He did some nice things. He's developing. Like he said, there's some blocks and things in the game they missed. And everybody thinks about the catches, and he made 2 nice catches. He's getting much better. I'm very pleased with his progress. I told you we were going to play him and get him in there and get him rolling in the things he did, and he's growing in it. And we try to get Keith going a little bit. We're trying to get him in the game some, and get some of those bigger guys in what we're doing. But you know, they also got to play in the field and block and do all those things too. You know what I mean? That's a big part of, because of football, as you see, your safeties and all that supports, and being able to block and get on those guys is critical. We got a back like Dalvin, that's what we got to do a better job of. You know, we missed some blocks there too, but at the same time, I'm very happy with Audin's development and his attitude, and overall, he's going to be a very good football player.
Jimbo, what's the difference between lining up Auden as a wide receiver?
I'm sorry?
The difference between lining up Auden as a wide receiver versus maybe as a tight end? Whereas he has the
That
size-
270-pound guy's got him by the neck, right in front of him. I mean, you can say because you're 220 pounds, and you line up in there, it's grown man league in there. You ain't never been in there, it's a whole different world now. It's a lot easier to go inside out than outside in. I mean, from what you do. Then all of a sudden he's grabbing one of those guys, and then that's a key block on one of your quarterbacks, or he's not ready for that. He's a physical big guy, but he ain't ready for one of those big guys getting a hold of him. He ain't never done it. He's been a wideout his whole life. And that's why you say a lot of those tight ends, you see skill guys that it takes a long time. Like even, for instance, who was a great player at, I can't think of the daggone name, Brewster coach San Diego. Tight end.
Antonio Gates.
Gates, and he didn't play a lot of football, but it took him, you know, and there was a couple other guys. Who was a big guy? Jimmy Graham. Remember Graham? They put him in there for a year or 2, and he was a big tight end, come off the basketball court, never played a lot of football, or never been inside. In college, you never really knew who he was, but pro ball, eventually, in time, they do that. But man, early, a lot of those guys eventually become better pros than they do college guys, because it just takes time to really learn how to go down in there and play. And I'm definitely a receiver. Done a good job. Very pleased. Okay. Anybody else? Thank you, guys.